My name is Walker. I'm from Northwest Florida in the Panhandle area, and I'm starting in the fall as a freshman at Dartmouth.
Perfect, perfect. Tell us a little bit about your journey in choosing Dartmouth as a school.
Sure. So when I initially applied to Dartmouth, a lot of it was because of the D plan. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the D plan, but kind of the basics of the D plan, it's Dartmouth's undergraduate scheduling. And the way they set it up is you have to take a certain amount of academic terms and a certain amount of out terms for internships and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
the cool thing about that is most students are just all competing for these same summer internships. But because of the D plan, we're doing some internships in the fall, some internships in the spring, doing satellite offices and stuff like that. So you can get a lot more kind of real world experience before you go out as well. So that's why I
Okay.
applied. And then I actually, obviously, that's a big part of why I ended up attending, but that wasn't the whole thing. So after I attended, I kind of narrowed it down and I got into some different schools and everything. And then my final two that I was narrowing it down between were Dartmouth and Duke. So
Okay.
those were the two that kind of most were jumping out at me. So I did admitted student stays at both. And really, it honestly came down largely to the student culture at Dartmouth. Because Duke has a lot of great programming for professional support and everything as well.
Mm-hmm.
Loved both campuses, loved the academics of both. But then kind of, we did this thing called Dartmouth After Dark when we were there on the admitted student stays. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all of these sophomores that are there now, and they walk you around the campus and they kind of talk about some of their favorite places and they talk through kind of what the student life aspect is like. And that's what ended up actually making me pick Dartmouth over Duke at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's a great culture and a lot of great support for you as you're kind of getting ready for your next step.
Yeah, I totally agree. Plus the campus is so dope, so much
It is. I
needed.
love the campus.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's a river nearby. I literally saw a deer running around yesterday. That's so
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the
All right.
woods for sure, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it's still a lot of fun. Plus the city is really nice as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get into the meat of your application. I feel like that's what most
Sure.
people are very curious about. So, what were the stats, like your GPA and test scores, that got you to Dartmouth?
Absolutely. So my weighted GPA was a 4.6, something in that area, and my
Mm-hmm.
unweighted GPA was a 4.0. And
Okay,
then I didn't take the ACT, I took the SAT, and my SAT was a 1570.
70. Okay,
1570.
perfect. That's amazing. All right,
Thank
let's
you. I
talk about.
appreciate it.
All right, and like, were you ranked number one in your class, or like, do
I
you think
was.
other
I was
people
my
were ahead of you?
valedictorian of my class. And
Okay.
then also I obviously did some AP exams and stuff, got some fives and fours on those, and so on, so on. Yeah.
So we can say that you felt really confident about your academic profile compared to other applicants.
So for my area, I felt like my academic profile was really strong. Of course, we don't have any prep schools or anything like that in our area. So if you compare me to some of the kids that maybe went to Andover or Exeter in the north and stuff like that, they may have more AP exam scores than I do, more stuff like that. But I definitely maximized what my school had to offer as far as academics go. And really, I'd say overall, that's the biggest thing when they're looking at you academically when you're applying to any of these schools. They're not comparing you against all of the students everywhere else in the world that are applying because they
Yeah.
can't. I mean, some people don't have the same APs, some people don't have the same classes offered. They're comparing you next to all of the other students in your region. That's why they break it down largely by regional admissions counselors. So you want to make sure you're taking all the classes your school offers, make sure you're doing everything you can to be competitive in your area. And that's part of holistic review. They'll review it in the context of where you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, I threw it a lot at
Uh,
you there.
no. I think the more we can get out is better because I think I'm gonna cut it down a little bit for short form content, but for the
Absolutely.
longer people like who want to get it deep into the application process, I think it
Sounds
would be
great.
really beneficial. Okay. So let's talk about AP classes. So how many AP classes did you take for Dartmouth, and did you feel pressure to take every single AP offered?
So that's a good question. I would say there's pressure to take whatever your school offers. To be applying to these
Mhm.
competitive schools, they want to see that you're challenging yourself. Now, I don't think there's pressure if my school didn't offer AP research or AP seminar, we didn't do capstone. I didn't feel pressure to go do those online so that I could compete with the kids in other places in the country that had capstone. But whatever the highest level courses offered by my school were, I felt that I needed to take so they can see that you're challenging yourself. So yeah, I actually haven't counted them all out in one sitting before. Let's see. I took AP Gov, I took AP US,
Mm-hmm.
AP Human Geography, AP Physics, 2 years of AP Calc, AP Environmental Science, and AP Lang and AP Lit. And I may be missing one, but that's about it.
But that's a pretty good course schedule. And
Thank you.
how would you say you balance taking challenging courses while maintaining your GPA?
Absolutely. So really, I think just making sure you know your limits and making sure you're doing the prep work you need to do to succeed. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, with me, I'm a strong math student, so I knew AP Calc wasn't going to take me as much work day to day, but then I knew I'm not a science guy. So when I'm taking AP Physics, okay, I'm going to be needing to allocate more of my time to getting that physics coursework done so I can stay strong in that. So I think it's definitely just about making sure you're methodical with it. So a big rumor I think a lot of teachers like to say is you need to always be studying for their class. Quite frankly, I think you need to be self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you need to be studying for what you need to study for and prioritizing your time. With English, after I took AP Lang, you're not learning much new content in AP Lit. So why
Mm-hmm.
would I be spending all of this time looking through and trying to memorize a bunch of vocabulary and stuff that I already know when I have a new AP course over here? AP Chem, that's the one I forgot earlier. But when I have a new course over here that I don't know the content for. So I think it's about being self-aware and making sure you are doing what you individually need to do to succeed, if that makes any
Okay.
sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like this is very, very informational for people who are just getting into this area of their life. What would you say to a person who's just starting out right now and who's just getting into the
Person
college
just starting
application
out right
process?
now,
Yeah.
be diligent
Uh,
about it from the beginning.
okay.
That's one thing I wish I'd thought about sooner. If you look at my ninth grade year schedule and what I did ninth grade year academically versus what I did junior year, there's no comparison. And because I wasn't doing as much ninth grade year because I didn't understand what all it took, I didn't know to get into these schools, you need to make sure you're really on top of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
It means that my life was way, way harder junior year because I had to be making up the difference because in my underclassmen years, I didn't understand as much. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, I got to make sure I get my SAT, got to make sure I'm taking all these APs, got to make sure I'm doing blah, blah, blah. So if you from the beginning are working on that, it'll make your job easier later on. And honestly, standardized testing, people seem to feel this thing of I need to wait till I'm an upperclassman. I disagree. SAT, ACT, they don't cover calculus. They don't cover
Yeah.
statistics. They cover the earlier areas of math. So I took algebra and geometry when I was in middle school. So after ninth grade year, I'd gone all the way through algebra 2, which means I'd gone through all of the math that is covered on ACT, SAT. So then whenever I went back, because I didn't start working on SAT until junior year, I had to start refreshing on the geometry that I hadn't had in my mind since 8th grade to make sure that I was ready for SAT. If I instead, after 9th grade, when I had all that math, were to jump straight into prepping for that, it would give me more time, let me be more relaxed, and would make it actually fresher. So I'd say, especially with standardized testing, start early all the way.
Okay. Okay. I think that's the common sentiment with a lot of people I'm interviewing to just start early, just get into it and see where you
Totally.
stand. Because like if you don't know where you stand, you're not gonna be able to prepare by the end of it. It's gonna be too
No.
late. Yeah.
The college admissions world today is very, very different than it used to be.
Yeah.
So what your teachers are saying is great. What your parents are saying is great. But the fact is, even if they've gone to these great schools themselves, the world they were applying in is vastly, vastly different from the world we're in now.
Yeah.
So make sure you are being aware of what all it takes now and what you need to do from the beginning, because otherwise it'll be running around with your head on fire later on.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Like the time passes so fast. It's like
It
at
does.
one point you're just chilling, and then the next time I'm late for literally everything.
You're absolutely right. You're like, oh, I've got plenty of time, and then you wake up and all of it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about extracurriculars. When would you say you really started focusing seriously on building your extracurricular profile for IVs?
Okay, so I'm going to say something a bit different. Don't chase an extracurricular profile. Don't chase these schools. Chase your passion, and the profile in the schools will follow. They're not looking, the whole big rumor I hear a lot is, oh, these schools want the well-rounded applicant. No, they don't. It's these people that think I need to do everything. I need to make sure I'm doing math club, science club. I need to be doing band and theater and student government. And they think they need to be doing everything. And schools don't want that because they want people. That looks like I'm a robot trying to jam in as much as possible.
Yeah.
What they want to see is you have this interest. That's what you care about. And you have a real depth of interest and understanding there. So like for me, I applied under theater. I've been performing and teching and all of that stuff since I was 5 years old. That's what I've done and what I've always loved doing. My resume in my extracurricular profile, when you look at it, is 95% theater related. That's not a problem because what it shows them is, hey, I have something I care about, and I have something that because I care about this, I've become near the best at this. So that's what they're looking for. I mean, I even saw in some of your earlier videos, you were talking about your hook or your peak or your point. And
Yeah.
that's exactly the same thing here. You want to have what your hook is,
Yeah.
but you also can't be artificial. These schools read so many applications and so many are artificial. It
That's why I
can't
like
be, I'm
this.
going to find a hook that looks good. So I know they don't have a lot of environmental science majors, so I'm going to make my hook environmental science. Because they can see through all the BS.
Yeah.
So you need to go, okay, this is what I care about. I'm going to chase this passion. And because I'm genuine about it, everything else will fall into place after.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. Totally agree
Cool.
with this.
Thank you.
I don't think a university wants like even especially like an Ivy League wants like a well-rounded applicant. I feel like they mostly want like a well-rounded class. So people who are like masters of one, you know, because they want
No,
like I feel like
absolutely.
I
Because
totally get
when you
what you
go
mean.
to whatever school you go to, here's the hard reality. You won't be the master of everything. Because
Yeah,
everyone they've admitted is a fantastic applicant and really bright and driven. That's why you've all gotten in. So they're not looking for someone that's doing student government and math and theater and band and cheerleading. They're looking for, okay, I'm your theater person.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know that I can really boost your whole school in that area. And then they'll get a gov major for government and they'll get a math major for math. So they have so many applicants. You just need to make sure this is whatever your thing is, you're doing the most for that.
yeah. Totally agree. Yep.
Well, thank
All
you.
right. So can you walk us through some of your extracurriculars?
Yeah,
The one you
absolutely.
think impressed the admissions officers the most?
Sure. So I will say, and this is a little specific to the arts because, like I said, I applied under
Mm-hmm.
theater. But the line between having your focus and being well rounded, here's where I think it ends. My focus is theater. I know I've done everything in the craft of theater. So I'm a well rounded thespian, even though I'm not a well rounded applicant.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done a bunch of performance and everything. I've done a bunch of tech. So I've shown them I can do all the lights, all the sound, all the performing. I can also do directing. That was one of my big things. I was a director foremost. They see, okay, this guy can do all of that. But then I've also done theater education. I've gone in and I've taught a bunch of students about all of that stuff. And I've kind of shared my interest with them. And I've worked on producing and helping companies get their start in theater and everything like that. So I've done everything in that field. It's just that's my field. So more specifically, if we're asking about extracurricular list, I think leadership is big. Leadership is
Mm-hmm.
very important. They don't want people that are just good at stuff. They want people that will be leaders on their campus. So in theater, I've done all the performing and I've done all of that stuff like I mentioned. But I think what they probably liked about my application, if I had to guess, because I haven't seen my admissions file, is I've done directing. So I've led the productions. I've also started a theater program at my school, which didn't have one. So I ran that and I was picking shows and casting kids and working with sponsors and getting equipment and all of that. So I ran that program. And then I also started a theater outreach organization, which goes into schools and helps students learn about theater and kind of get connected to that. And now we're operating, that was my biggest thing. Now we're operating in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. So we're operating in 3 states right now, hopefully
Mm-hmm.
with more to come, fingers crossed. And we've taught K through 12 students and done some presentations for them to get to see high quality shows as well. So that was probably my biggest thing on my list because it showed, okay, I've started something that I care about and we've grown a lot in a really short period of time. So yeah, I think make sure you're a master of your trade and that you're showing initiative and leadership in whatever you're doing.
Okay, so I'm gonna make something very clear for the viewers as well. What Walker is saying is basically you have to show impact, I think, because I feel
Absolutely.
like a lot of people get into a lot of different things, but there's no substance to any of them. So it's much better to choose like a certain path and then go all in on that and then show massive
Exactly.
impact, like you showed. Okay.
And impact is important, like you mentioned, because it's not just even leadership, but how are you helping others and how are you impacting others and how will you end up
Yeah.
making the school look better? Because for them, it's an
Yeah.
economic decision. When they're admitting kids, either how are you going to bring money to the school or how are you going to boost the school's reputation? More often than not, it's the latter. They're looking for how will you make us look good?
Yeah.
So when I show them, okay, I've gone and I've been teaching hundreds of K through 12 students in 3 states, and we're offering a lot to all of those communities that don't have access to these arts. What jumps out at them there is, okay, he's impacting a broad community and he's doing something that if he does something like that at our school, it will boost our reputation and make us look better. So that's why
Yeah.
impact's important because everything is a decision for them at the end of the day. So you want to make sure you're showing how you will help them.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Cool. Thank you.
A lot of people also ask, like, do you need to do like community service? Did you do community service? Stuff like that.
So I did. So, like I said, I ran that nonprofit, which grew a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much all of my community service was through my nonprofit. And I think that's the thing. You want community service, absolutely. But you want motivated community service. Because again, it comes down to impact. You don't want it to be, okay, I picked up trash on the beach and that was a fun thing to do. And then I went over here and I did a bake sale and that was good. And then I spent some time at a senior living home. You want it to be whatever your service is, should be genuine, long reaching service. So I'm serving in that same capacity. And yeah, I stopped charting my service hours after I got past 200. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be having any need for any more hours than that. So I stopped counting them really. But it's through that nonprofit. That's what I care about. And that's where I'm serving. So yeah, I think community service is important, but make sure it's motivated as well.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so now before we wrap up the extracurricular section, what's like a one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to apply to Ivy League's top colleges?
Absolutely.
And what? Yeah.
Sure. It comes back to what I was saying earlier, but find your passion and go all in. Go, okay, this is what I love to do. This is what I want to be doing. And that's what I'm focusing on. And then make sure with extracurriculars, you go as deep into that as possible. Because especially when you're writing your essays and you're submitting your activities list, they can feel, okay, this kid is serious about this. This is something this kid loves and that this kid genuinely cares about. Because a lot of people now, they create these fake hooks to try to get in. And I've actually seen a lot of that, but admissions officers can tell. Like if I went, okay, I've done chemistry, I'm applying as a chem major, they'll be able to see that even though I can do chemistry, my interest there isn't genuine. So you want to make sure that whatever it is, that's what you care about, and that'll come through. And then do as much in that as you can.
But awards and honors,
Awards
did
and
you
honors.
feel competitive in that area? And how can someone build that?
Absolutely. So I think, honestly, I think I was probably about in the mid area with awards and honors in terms of I don't think I was on the lower end, but I'm not one of the crazy acclaimed kids as well. A lot of my awards and honors came from academic stuff. So I was an AP scholar with distinction. I was a National Merit Scholar, which was a big one for me. And then I was in Florida, we have something called Sunshine State Scholars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from each district, you send maybe one kid in the state, one kid from the district. If it's a very big district, maybe two, three for like the largest couple districts. But it's a few students in the state of Florida that end up going to this state conference, which is pretty much a recruiting conference for colleges and stuff. But then it's an award as well that you have there. So yeah, I had that one. I had National Merit. I had a couple AP Scholar Awards, stuff like that. So I mainly had academic awards.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Okay.
theater, there aren't a lot of awards to be given out. Theater isn't really because it's so subjective as most art is, there aren't as many of those awards in place. So like when you've talked to students that have done debate and all of that, they'll have, okay, I won Incubate here, and then I won Model UN over here and stuff like that. If you're in a field that has a lot of awards, I think definitely those speak for themselves. So you definitely want to get those as much as possible. But you just don't want that section to be empty. So even if I'm in a field that doesn't have all of those, mainly it's academic awards for me, but it's still, hey, I'm showing, because they're objective. You've gone against other students and you're showing that you've come out in a good place on some of those. So the colleges do care about seeing those.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
It's not the end all be.
Honors are like slightly less important compared to other parts of the application.
Totally. I think
Yeah.
it goes, they check on your grades and standardized tests before anything else. That's going to be the weed out because they've got to go through a lot of applications. So if
Yeah.
you don't meet their threshold there, then you're not going to really get through to the next level for the most part. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, I found that to be the case. After that, I think whatever your hook is, whatever you're really focusing on, your passion, and the narrative you have around that is by far the next most important. And then awards and honors are like all the way down here. Like
Yeah.
they're still good to have, they still help, but I don't think they're near as important as those other aspects.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit. Yeah, let's talk about your essay. How did you turn your journey into compelling essays for the Ivy League?
Absolutely. So, you know, a lot of these schools, especially the more competitive schools, you submit supplemental essays as well. So what you want to do there is whatever your Common App essay is, you don't want to talk about that in your supplementals. You want to show breadth of profile by giving different responses to these essays. So my Common App essay was really about my passion for theater, and it was largely why I'm passionate about it, largely what it means to me, so that they can see that, because that's the first thing they'll see when they look at me. So I went ahead and I put that into my Common App. If you have a large personal narrative, I've seen students be very successful talking about their personal lives and everything if there's a lot to talk about there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
about finding, okay, what is the first thing you want them to know about you? What is their impression right off the bat? How do you showcase yourself and how do you give them a feel for who you are? So you want it to be natural. You don't want it to be like in some of these classes where it's really rigid and formal of, recently I have had an immense interest in this, blah, 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 following the academic structure. Because
Yeah.
that's just boring for them to read and it doesn't feel like you. So take some artistic liberties there, make it your personal voice. Be wary of a sob story. Some people that have really intense things that they want to get across that have defined them, I've seen be successful with that. But so many people try to create a sob story, or even if you have one, they try to emphasize that. And I don't think those are usually the best way to go because you've got to be hesitant with that because they're not fun to read and everyone has had tough times. So, like, for instance, we had a really bad hurricane years ago back at my home, and it messed up
Mm-hmm.
my home really badly, and we had to move around into rental properties until we could get a new place and everything because everything was damaged, and it really impacted our community. But that wasn't my common app because everyone has a sob story, everyone has stuff that's gone wrong, and that's not usually showing as much about who you are. If you're going to show hardship, show how it has positively impacted you and built you up. So one of my supplementals, I did talk about the hurricane. But I talked about with the hurricane, we lost the arts in our area and all of it was wiped out. And because of that, that's really made me realize the power the arts have and how not everyone has access to them. Once they were gone, I realized more than ever before how much they'd impacted me. And that kind of set me on the course of, okay, now I'm going to make sure I can share them with everyone. And I
Yeah.
created my nonprofit, created that school program, everything like that. Yes, that was a sad thing that happened, but that was, okay, this was a struggle I went through. This is how it furthered me. And this is the good that ended up coming out of it. I would never write an essay of just, yeah, we had a really bad storm and it messed up my house and it was rough. Because what does that tell you about how you will adapt to situations there? So yeah,
Yeah.
just be
Totally agree.
exactly. So be cognizant of that and make sure whatever you're presenting is how you want them to meet you. Really, you may not get an interview. Dartmouth didn't give me an interview, and that's where I ended up going. So interviews don't mean everything, but if they can meet you and learn your voice from the essay, that's a win right there. So make sure you're focusing on that.
Perfect. I think this gives a lot of context to a lot of people who are just
Cool. Thank
kind
you.
of dabbling into college essays. Another question they might be thinking about is how do you make your story stand out when you don't have the typical extraordinary narrative?
Okay. So if you don't have the extraordinary narrative, which most people don't, I mean, my narrative isn't anything extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
You want your personality to stand out because they're meeting people with all of this. They don't want it to be numbers on a page. It's a person. So make sure your voice is coming through. I've seen people who had really successful, I saw one who had a really successful college essay and they were talking about their Hot Wheels collection. A niche thing, nothing about their passion, nothing about what they're bringing, but they used it as this analogy for everything. And they were talking about how it defines them and everything and going into a lot of depth there. And that ended up being a really successful essay. It can be something mundane as long as you present it in a way where they can meet you. But that said, don't get overly abstract with it to the point where it's all philosophical of, this is a map of my life. There's a map hanging in my room, and then what that really means, and then you go into some big metaphorical thing. You can have metaphor, you can have all those elements, but you want it to feel real. It's not a story you're trying to tell. It's, okay, this is me, and I'm introducing you. Because you don't have a lot of words either. You've got to get a lot in few words. So just figure out how can you make your personality organically come across through it.
Okay, following up on that, like I think a lot of people might also be thinking that and they might be worrying that their story isn't dramatic or impressive enough. Like, how did you get out of that mindset?
Sure. Your story doesn't need to be dramatic or impressive. You just want them to become invested in you. So it's not, oh, I've had a really rags to riches hard life story, and that shows that I'm one of the greatest people ever, whatever, something like that. It doesn't need to be a big movie. It just needs to be, okay, why would someone want to be your friend? Why would someone want to have you on their campus? What makes you you, and why is that a good thing? So yeah, everyone has, whether you have a big story or not, everyone has a very, very unique personality. And everyone has stuff that defines them as a person and that really makes them special. That's what you're trying to get across in your essay. It doesn't need to be a story. It doesn't need to be something dramatic. It just needs to be something that speaks to who you are.
I think this gives a lot of context to a lot of people who are, kind of worried about, and they might do some stuff which is like not true to themselves and it kind of comes out as like inauthentic, I believe.
Totally.
Yeah, and I feel
Totally.
like that's much worse than just writing about what you truly are.
I
and who you
agree with
truly
you.
are.
I agree with you.
All right, let's talk about supplemental essays.
Sure.
Which Dartmouth supplemental essay was the most challenging to write?
Most challenging supplemental for Dartmouth. Honestly, I loved the Dartmouth supplementals. I
Mhm.
liked the Dartmouth supplementals more than the Common App. A lot of the Dartmouth supplementals were big into service, which of course is something that I'm very, very passionate about and what has kind of been an underlying theme of my narrative. So when I get to talk about that, really, that was awesome for me. The Dartmouth supplementals were my favorite supplementals of any of the schools I applied to. So I will say though, most schools, including Dartmouth, have a why this school question.
Yep.
That's one that's tough to stand out in. When they ask you, why do you want to go here? Because obviously everyone's writing that answer and they really want to see, do you have a real connection? Here's what they don't want to see. The woods are a beautiful place and the iconic Baker clock tower and listing out, okay, I know a lot about your school because I Googled it. That's not what they want to see. They want to see depth of, okay, what makes you particularly and this school particularly a good fit? So the broad stuff of it's a top 15 school and it's a great reputation and it's going to help me a lot. Sure, that's true for everyone. Why is it special for you? If you find a program you like, do a lot of research into the school before you ever write the why this school essay. Find, okay, I like this summer offering. I like this program that they are adding. I like this particular teacher that's lecturing. Find something specific and powerful that ties in specifically to you. So for me, with the D plan, it allows me to keep working on my nonprofit. So I can open another branch in New Hampshire and I can open one in New York close by and everything like that.
Mhm.
And I can continue offering that outreach during the school year when these schools are in session. So because they'll let me take an out term to work during the year instead of just during the summer, I can go into these classrooms while they're open. So I'm like, okay, that's something specific and that's how it relates to me. Find whatever your thing like that is that shows, okay, first off, I've done my research and I actually know about you. And here's why it especially is good for me. You don't want to chat
Yeah.
GPT it and say, what are the best things about Dartmouth? Because I guarantee you everyone else applying is also chat GPTing what are the best things about Dartmouth.
Yeah. I feel like that nowadays it's even harder to distinguish yourself because of ChatGPT.
Totally.
Everyone's
Do
gonna come
yourself
up
a
with
favor,
that
steer
same.
clear of AI and college applications. I know you may not get caught. I know you probably won't get caught because you're good writers largely, and you'll know, okay, I can make it sound like my own voice, but it won't sound like your own personality. It'll be a robot writing your essay, and as good, no matter how good of an essay it is, what it'll mean is your actual personality won't come through and you'll blend in. If you want to stick out, you need to do it yourself. That's the tough truth.
Yeah.
Sorry, little side
Totally
note
agree.
there. Felt
No,
like
no,
it was
no.
something that needed to be said.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree because you cannot. I feel like college applications are mostly about connecting with the admissions officers.
Absolutely.
It's like a lot of people are gonna be just like I read somewhere like they spend like 30 to 60 seconds on an application, and if you're not able to catch their attention at that time,
That
you're
is
not gonna be able to.
100% true. 100%.
All right, let's talk about like I think another question I get a lot is like, what would you tell a junior who feels like they've wasted their first 2 years of high school?
A junior who feels like they've wasted their first 2 years of high school. First off, having a high school experience isn't a waste. Are you saying wasted as in hasn't done enough stuff prior to?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're feeling like anxious about college applications now.
So that's a struggle that I've had to feel and go through. And I first off want to say, if you're going to the football games and you're playing on a team that you like and you're hanging out with friends and you're doing the high school stuff, don't let anyone tell you that's a waste. Because a lot of people get so sucked into the college application process that they miss the time in high school. So first off, good job doing that. That's something that I'm glad you spent the time to do. Now, if you haven't done a lot of underclassmen years, that means these next 2 years will be tougher because you just got to get more in. But it's not at all like you're at a loss or you're out of time. Make sure that you focus on what is authentic to you because you can't do everything if you're in junior year. Pick, this is the thing I want to do. This is what I care about. I'm going all in on that. And that'll come through. Make sure you prioritize academics though. So don't go, I'm so all in on this that my grades are slipping. Really, junior year, you can do it all. It's going to be a sleepless year at first, and then you'll adjust and you'll be fine. My junior year at the beginning, I was getting very little sleep, and then I took a step back and I'm like, wait, be healthy. Don't kill yourself in this process. A lot of people are in your situation and you can get through it. So really don't let yourself be too anxious and don't kill yourself trying to overcompensate. Be busy, get to work, sure, but make sure you're still making time for you because it will mean that it comes across smoother and you do it better. So yeah, pick a few things that you really want to focus on and go all in on those and don't kill yourself.
Okay. Another question I think would help a lot of high school students is that I feel like they're very scared and like anxious about college admissions, so they start chasing the crowd, you know. What would you say that would help them focus on their own story instead of like feeling inadequate and trying to chase whatever's
Yeah,
flashy?
your story is good enough, and you don't know what they're looking for. But I'll tell you what they're not looking for. They're not looking for another one of these people. They don't need a duplicate Walker. They want to see what you're doing. If you chase my story, it likely won't work because you're not me. And it means that you're trying to copy someone that's not you. And it won't come across as authentic, first off. And also, they already have someone doing what I'm doing. Show them what you're doing instead. So, yeah, there is no inauthentic story or story that's not good enough. There are only people that don't realize their story is worth telling. So make sure whatever your story is, just stick to that. Because first off, it'll be a lot more enjoyable over 4 years if you're doing what you love and letting the college admissions follow. If you're trying to force yourself into something that's not you, you're going to be miserable. You're going to have a much better time if you're doing what is really you, and then you're going to have better results as well. So yeah, just stick to yourself.
I think that's really good advice as well.
Thank you.
All right, last question
Sure.
before we end this podcast. Biggest college application myth you want to bust?
Biggest college application myth I want to bust. Class rank. Class rank. And I'm sure you've gotten that from other people you've interviewed.
Yep, yeah, just with William right now.
Absolutely. People want to say you got to be number one in your class to go. That's not true. I mean, look at, okay, I'm going to point at some of the schools in the north. You've got people at Exeter and Andover, those boarding schools up there, and they may send 20 kids to Ivies in a year. So that kid that got into an Ivy as number 20 wasn't number one in their class. They had a good GPA and a good story and good academics, and they did everything. And it didn't matter that they weren't a couple GPA points higher than the person in front of them. I know there's a school in our area, and there's a girl who got into Dartmouth, and she wasn't ranked valedictorian or anything like that. And I know people in schools around that applied to Ivies, higher ranked, and didn't get in. So your class rank, that little number, I'm whatever, number 2 out of 400, matters very little. GPA matters. Keep your GPA up, but don't worry about the comparison game of, oh, he has a 4.58 and I have a 4.59. But if he gets a 4.60, he's going to beat me. Like, that's really, there's an overfixation on that, and I really haven't found that to be true at all. So yeah, just do what you're doing, and don't worry about that rank system as much, because it really doesn't mean much, because they recalibrate everything anyways.
Yep. All right, I think this is gonna be a really helpful video for a lot of college students
Awesome.
to
I hope
apply.
so. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to being connected with you in the future as well.
Absolutely. I look forward to talking to you in the future, and thank you so much for having me.